Welcome, it is SVPod. Stanford Steve is in Florida. Red is in the building. Don't know where, but somewhere. Dog's smart, really smart, Steve. I say, you want to do a podcast? He goes like that. And then he runs to the door and gets very excited. Red is here.
How do you do with the snowstorm?
Loves it.
Yeah.
Loves it. Just, I'll get into just how handy and efficient I was with a snowblower. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to start with a sincere and serious all we can do, and it feels hollow and it feels like not a lot, but all we can do to our friends in LA is send love. We got a lot of them out there. I know you do. I was on the phone with Rosillo late Tuesday night driving home. As he said so well, and it's true, Los Angeles is like 30 different versions of itself, all just connected via the different highways and whatever. And where he is okay for the time being. But I know a lot of folks out there, and some folks aren't. Those fires are terrifying to watch. It's like the windiest it's ever been, according to people that have lived in LA their whole lives. And so as someone who lost their home to a fire, completely different circumstance, but I can relate to being displaced. But this is way different. This is just this completely out of control, unable to predict thing. And so we're supposed to go there for a Monday night game. I have no idea what's going on with that. But to everybody that's out there in harm's way, all love, only love, and I just pray everybody's safe. It's scary, scary deal. The LA trip we're supposed to take is for the end of the Wildcard weekend. We'll talk Wildcard. In between that, you get what a week if you love football, and everybody listening does. A Thursday game, a Friday game in college, standalones. Then Saturday you get a couple of Wildcard games. Sunday you get 3. Monday things wrap up with the Rams and the Vikings. And shall we go in order, big boy?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, I'm here for the Orange Bowl. Fired up. We got game day for 90 minutes leading up to kickoff. Penn State, Notre Dame. Really curious about the Notre Dame on the injury front. Got some guys nicked up. I don't know what Love's going to be.
Freeman spoke to that today. Said he had a couple good days of practice, but you never know.
I don't believe anyone. I don't believe
Thank
anyone.
you for
no offense.
Thank you. Exactly.
No offense.
And that's Freeman's a stand-up great dude, but I just think when you're talking about, I just don't believe anything anyone says.
Correct. Yeah, and we'll see a pregame. It'll be a big focus, knowing how much of a difference maker he is. But this, I look at this game and all I think of is Drew Aller. I know he said he's coming back to school. That is still on the table for me. I did McShay's podcast. I gave him a hot take and said Drew Aller throws for 250. Penn State wins a national championship. He's not coming out for the draft. Come on. He's gone.
You know what it feels like now, Steve, with this chance to get on a run, especially if you don't get the bye, you get a 4-game window. 4-game standalone playoff window, and it's just like the NCAA tournament. And you look at guys through the years, and the guy that immediately jumps to mind, Zach Collins. He was a guy that came out and was a potential kid, Gonzaga. Yeah, maybe he could be a 4-year guy, maybe has a chance to go to the league. Starts cooking, plays well, and you see the potential. And the NBA, it's different. You get drafted on potential way more in the NFL than you do, in the NBA more than the NFL. But I think it's the same type of thing. If Aller shows out against this defense and then either the Texas or Ohio State defense in a quarterback draft that doesn't have a guy that's the guy, that was your hot take, huh?
Yeah.
It could happen.
Not a good word is being said about any quarterback in this class. Right now, we're in that phase of both quarterbacks that were talked about all year having their own issues in the bowl game. So right now, it's kind of a time to go if you have a chance. So to me, it's Aller, but against this defense, I don't see it. I think it's low scoring. I know the freshness could be a factor with Notre Dame having a delay because of the tragedy at the Sugar Bowl. But I like the way Notre Dame – the issue I have here with Notre Dame is anybody going to have to make Riley Leonard throw the football? And We'll see. I think if they don't have Love, that becomes an issue. He's been awesome running the football. We saw what he did to Georgia, timely runs, and against Indiana, he was totally fine. Played with a lead, and that's the way they want to play and put their defense on the field. So I like Notre Dame in the matchup. I like the way it aligns for him.
What's the Abdul Carter story?
I don't believe anyone either on that one.
Yeah.
We'll see. Sounds like a shoulder. I don't know if that's AC joint. I don't think it was a dislocation. Could be a sprain. But yeah, I would expect him out there with a harness on. And
you know what I need? You know what we need to do, Steve? We need those internet doctors. We need to go see the internet doctor.
No, we don't. No.
No, because they'll be able to look at the video and they'll diagnose it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you know what? When we get done here, I'm just gonna go look at the internet doctors.
I'll be on the field and I will be watching what those guys look like. So fired up. The venue's great. We talked about it off air, I believe. If people haven't been there, I mean, it's got to be 10 years, 12 years now with how they've put coverings at Hard Rock. And it's a great scene. Sets up perfectly for a neutral site game. And these two fan bases.
Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Which one are you rooting for to be happy at the end? Because here's the thing. No matter how hard you try, one of them's going to be, Steve.
Yeah. No, it's pretty. I mean, when the bracket came out, I'm like, are Penn State and Notre Dame really going to play for the right to go to the national championship? That's all I thought of as soon as the bracket came out, and here we are. As I've stated, plenty of friends on both sides.
So who do you hate bet? The Stanford Steve rule is he'll hate bet against the team that he doesn't like. That way, if they win, at least it's the opposite of the happiness edge. Or actually, maybe that's the definition of the happiness edge, depending on how you look at it. Someone who are you going to hate bet against?
I was thinking about betting Penn State for the first half and Notre Dame for the game.
What a dunce! Pick a lane.
You could win both.
Yeah, it's true. You could. But imagine if you thread the needle the wrong way, and then it's Notre Dame first half, Penn State game, and then you're just furious at the end.
Yeah, that. I do like the under, though. I do. I think it sets up a lot like the Sugar Bowl. Defense will be dominant. I don't see a lot of explosive plays. Riley Leonard is in the hundreds when it talks about average yards per attempt. I think he's around 7 or 8. He doesn't throw the football down the field. Aller, we've seen them open it up, but we know how good that run game is, and they're going to want to, establish that against Notre Dame. The matchup for Notre Dame, I like. I know they've lost guys. We talked about it all season, but the guys that they've stepped up, now they're rolling guys on the defensive line, which you need to do with what Penn State wants to do physically on that offensive line. But to me, the game is about Aller, and if they win, it's going to be because of Drew Aller.
If Notre Dame wins, I think they're going to have to be able to have a sustained drive that leads to points. That can't be the recipe that beat Georgia. I wouldn't want to rely on strip sack, fumble, first play touchdown, return a kick touchdown. I don't feel like that's a sustainable recipe. You're going to have to be able to sustain drives against a defense that they actually gave up quite a few yards against Boise. Quite a few yards. Boise just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly, had a touchdown taken off the board, missed a field goal, turned the ball over. You're going to have to be able to maintain drives and score points because I do think that Aller and Penn State are going to score. Now, I'm with you that I don't mean it's in the 30s by any stretch of the imagination. I just think Penn State's ability to drive and score, Notre Dame has to be able to match that. You can't rely on the splash play out of nowhere, I don't think. But I think we both are aligned as it relates to that. Feels like it's exactly what it looks like it'll be, a grimy battle of low-scoring teams. And in the end, Steve's going to be miserable.
We'll see.
Then we go to the Cotton Bowl. It's an inside joke. Shout out to the late, great Pat Summerall.
House of Buggin'.
Coming up, House of Buggin'. Everyone talks about
She Wrote.
Everyone talks about Murder, She Wrote. Murder, She Wrote. But the man used to have to read a promo for House of Buggin'. The stories about Summerall pretty legendary. I mean, he got after it. Legend. And so the joke about he did the Cotton Bowl, and so it was just the Cotton Bowl. I could keep going down this wormhole, but it's not. Those that know. They know what it is. Could be a safety. Could be a touchdown. Are we going to be able to get there? Let me just be honest. I am a weather geek. We know this. We got our snowstorm here in first time in a while. Actually piled up in the area. There's a storm on a southern track. It's going to impact that area. We were there years ago when it did, and it ain't good. It makes roads impassable. So I'm hopeful that everybody can get there and get to the game. Ohio State obliterated Oregon, giving less than a touchdown. Seems like no one gives Texas a chance. It's the perfect spot for Sark. You couldn't dream of a better scenario because you're in your home state and you're in a no one thinks you can win, and you get to tell your team that, and you can. You can. I just think if Ohio State plays anywhere near the ceiling that it has the last two, then no one in either game this week or the next can sniff them.
Yeah, but I do believe Texas has the pieces to counterpunch. If you say Cam Williams will be back at right tackle,
that's huge.
They need him. They have to establish the line of scrimmage, and that's what the biggest improvement has been for Ohio State. Minimal guys with pressure in the Rose Bowl. Those same guys that played at Eugene and lost and gave up 32 points in a loss brought the wood early on, and you could tell. Dylan Gabriel was frustrated. He was antsy. He lost Evan Stewart. He loses Jordan James. And, it's 24-0. It's 31, and I'm walking out of the building before halftime. So Texas has to answer that intensity right off the get. The question I have is we talk about rest and rust and all this. Texas's defense was on the field for 97 plays.
I remember that number.
And that was all Dillingham. Getting it going in the second half, and that's a tribute to them. But Texas has the guys. They've had plenty of talent. I think somebody said in this game 26 NFL prospects on the starting lineups for both teams.
Yeah, I saw that number. It definitely started with a 2. I didn't remember if it was low 20s, mid, whatever it is. It speaks to the depth of just what you'd think. Programs with deep pockets, tradition, that recruit in that 4- and 5-star pool exclusively, and then they go into the portal and get guys from other programs that were 4- and 5-star guys, just plug and play. And I think that for me, it comes down to this. You alluded to what happened to Oregon. That team averaged in the mid-30s, and they were 3 and out, and Ohio State scoring touchdowns. And before Oregon could get their feet underneath them, it's double digits to nothing. And before you knew it was 34-0. That was a wrap. Mm-hmm. I mean, good for Oregon. They scored a couple times, but maybe no. Texas's ability, and we talked about it in the last game with Sark and the script. I'm not worried about them first quarter being able to hang. I'm worried about what they do after that. I expect Texas to be able to match or Ohio State early, and then my question becomes like, what did Ryan Day talk about when he came on with us? The middle 8. Like the sequencing of the games,
mm-hmm.
That's where I want to see Texas maintain momentum, not get bogged down and have viewers. Viewers' ceiling looks really good, but there's too much ordinary there, and there's too many times I feel like there's lost possessions, and the way Ohio State's playing on offense right now, that cannot happen. That cannot happen. These games tend to skew lower. Like you just assume this is going to be. I actually think that the defense of Texas is going to have to be the difference if they win this game. I don't think they win a shootout. I think they win a game if their defense is able to slow down what Ohio State has been versus Tennessee and Oregon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, the personnel's there. They've done it. They've battled against the best. People talk about their schedule, whatever. If anybody's playing Ohio State, this is your biggest test of the year. I don't care who you are. The way they got it going, I went back and hopefully we'll do a breakdown on the show. I went back to the first play of every game for Ohio State this year and what Chip did and came out because I'm like, he had to do the first play of the game where he hit Scott Jr. on the tight end wheel off the fake screen. And I went back. It was 5 of the last 7 games were a motion and a quick screen or a quick out. And then sure enough, he's done it with different, like Ibuka would be the motion guy. The other tight end, 89, would be the other guy. And then this time it was Scott from the backfield, and he just blows right by the corner. So
can I ask an honest question?
Yeah.
Why is that important? Like when you're looking for that, what are you looking at to see? Like, what's that telling you, or what is it that you want to find out about what they do?
I want to know how
early?
he set it up.
Oh, okay.
Because, like I said, in games previous, he did all that motion and he just threw the quick screen. So now he comes out. He did it. He motions Trevion in the first game against Oregon. First play of the game. And he fakes the screen, and that's how Scott gets up the sideline.
And that was a big chunk. That was a chunk play.
30 yards.
And
yeah, so it kind of set the tone.
4 scored on the next play, didn't he?
I think it was 2 plays later.
Throw the ball to 4.
Yeah, and that's a play that's, I mean, we've seen versions of it where the tight end the running back runs opposite where he is in the alignment of the formation. You see it on Sundays, and now they're doing it with the damn wing back. And that's where Jeremiah Smith was lined up on that. So Chip's fully in his bag. Sark's going to be fully in his bag. Texas loves the idea of being a home dog here. They've referenced that, but
they are
again the opportunity, man. The opportunity you get when you and you know there's one team this week that has the opportunity to beat Ohio State, and for all the people that don't like Texas or like I don't know who the neutral people are rooting for. I would imagine Texas would get some fans knowing the fan bases of the other 3 and knowing how big Texas is, finding some allegiance of some sort. So it'll be fired up. Texas is the higher. Yeah, so they'll have the burnt orange on, and Ohio State will be in their rights.
I have 2 words for you. Butterscotch jacket.
Oh, you think he'll be ready?
That little crisp white shirt underneath. Butterscotch leather. 10-gallon.
Drippage.
Hair.
Drippage off the hair.
Hollywood hair. Don't know how it happens.
I don't know what that... Like, people say product. I'm just going to guess he uses products, or is that all natural?
Oh, that's just McConaughey Musk is what that is. That guy just starts oozing masculinity and then slips on that butterscotch, throws on the hat.
I can't wait to talk about the Commanders.
He's living right.
I don't know anyone that's a Texas Commanders fan besides that man.
Kevin Durant. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, right? He wore the uniform.
You're right.
Wore the uniform. Will Howard, ladies and gentlemen, he's been spectacular for them in these 2 games. It was notable to me for a guy that was a 1-year dude. He bought into every bit of what that Michigan game meant, which is why on the back end, I'm so impressed with how he singularly responded. Because to play in that rivalry, and this is the last time I'll speak of it, what I think is unreasonable amount of investment in one single game, and I thought that him losing that game would wreck him. And it didn't. His ability to respond on the back end of that game, he's thrown for, 605 touchdowns in the playoffs against Tennessee and Oregon, who both came in with pretty nice reps. They boat raced them both. It does make the gameplay against Michigan pretty baffling. Again, that doesn't matter. But I think as much Howard singularly represents what Ohio State has been in this playoff, and they've been what they've been because that guy's been awesome. That's what I've felt. And you get a chance to prove it once again. And then if you win this one, you're going to get a chance to prove it again. You're going to go up against excellent defenses. Certainly defense singular and then plural if you make it to the title game in Atlanta. But Howard and Ryan Day has raved about him after both. So
yeah, his deep ball accuracy is astronomical. The numbers don't even make sense with how accurate he's been on the deep ball.
And that was the question, right? Because you're a K-State guy and you throw it some, but I thought of him way more as a runner than I did as a thrower.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And we haven't even seen that aspect during this. He could still do both. Is that a factor in this game? A little QB run.
Huh?
Maybe. Tough to do props, though, at quarterback rush yards because sacks in college, they count against you.
High discipline.
Gap integrity.
NFL playoffs coming this weekend. I thought we might have a snow scenario for the Baltimore game Saturday. Does not appear that's going to happen. It looks like the lows, the energy is not going to get up the coast, Steve. I don't want to bore you with the details.
All right, there's one question. Is it going to be as cold as it was last year?
For what?
Baltimore.
This week?
Yeah.
No, not close.
Even a night game?
It'll be cold. I mean, you get atmospheric cooling, Steve. You got snow on the ground, and you just nowhere to hold the heat in. It just goes up into the atmosphere. It'll be cold, but you're not worried about that. Get to the playoffs in a minute. Just want to let everybody know that your boy got the snowblower going. Had a little ding dong. About, I don't know, we got probably 8 inches maybe. It was a fun one. Good snowstorm. And I did look in the snowblower and I thought, how long can gas sit in a machine before it becomes something that's no longer gas? What's the over under? 4 years? Had not turned on the snowblower in, I guess, about 4 years. And managed to get that bad boy going. And so naturally, my wife just rolled her eyes. She's like, you're so, I'm just walking around the neighborhood, just plowing sidewalks. It was just, I just felt, you feel like you're doing something useful. So I'm really proud of myself that I managed to go up. Again, shout out to Stroh-Snyder's, as always. Our local hardware folks got me an additive, poured it in there, magic. Got it going, primed it. You gave me the recipe.
Yeah.
I got news for you. The pull wasn't starting it, but we got the electric. Once we finally got it on, then you could just go with the pull. Now we're literally cooking with gas.
And then you don't want to turn it off.
No, because you're
like you're just going to go until there's no gas.
It's like when you jump a car, right? Your car battery dies when you jump. You're like, how long do I have to drive before this some bitch is going to go and I turn it again? But we had it cooking. Really, really.
Did you drive standard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? You had a stick shift?
I think stick shifts are like cursive. I don't think any kid, if you wrote a letter in cursive, would they just look at it and go, what the fuck is that? They don't even, What are these hieroglyphics? We don't recognize this nonsense. I think a stick shift's the same way. Do they even make cars with stick shifts anymore?
I don't know, but I did anything to get a car when I was young, and that's how I learned to drive stick. I loved it. I had a truck that was stick. I had another car.
Yeah, I mean,
on that hills, revving the engine,
right? When you'd have to get that clutch just right.
Yeah,
right. I mean, once you know how to do it, you know how to do it. But I thought about that recently. I thought about if a situation popped up, I don't know what it would be, where I had to drive a stick, could I do it?
Give me the keys and let's rev.
I'm with you. Do a burnout.
No doubt.
And
they're better in snow too.
Had to have weight in the back end.
Yeah.
What was your first car?
Ford Taurus.
What color?
Black.
Yeah. Your boy had a Chevy Monza. Google it.
Color?
White. A little hatchback. Let me tell you, the weight in the back of the Monza was insufficient. Right now, our Omaha folks are pulling up pictures of Chevy Monzas, and let me tell you. What's up, ladies?
Would the Monza be parked in Dewey for the summer?
Oh, that was so far before I even knew what Dewey was. Dewey was just a speed
this is
bump.
High school.
Dewey was a speed bump in between Bethany and Rehoboth. It didn't. No one stopped in there. Dewey? What's that? The Monza, baby. But the problem in the winter was that the back end was so light that there was no
whipping around.
What some of my boys would call gription, which is actually makes traction and gription. No gription in the back of the Monza. So you'd have to, I took weights from the weight bench and put them in the back just to try to get. No, I'm not joking. Yeah, I had a Monza. And then when I went, this is a crime I'm admitting to. When I went to go trade it in, that was back in the day when you you could get a coat hanger in there and you could roll back the odometer. This is a true story. And so I put a coat hanger in and I rolled back the odometer like 20,000 miles. Okay. Again, I'm admitting to a crime.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations have long since expired. But then when I started driving, the odometer started spinning like a cab in a fare in a cab. Like the miles were just rotating as I drove. And I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And so the good news is when I went to trade it in, the Monza was dead. They were like, look, man, you could just leave it here, but there's not a lot of get back here on the old trade in. Cool. And I was like, yes, the odometer, I don't know, man. And they're like, they didn't care. But just picture young Van Pelt with a coat hanger committing crime. Again, this is probably around the time when the credit rating wasn't great. I owed for the Movado watch that I boosted from Bloomingdale's. Jeez, things were grim for quite a while. Oh my gosh. Let's talk. You want to talk about the playoffs?
Yeah.
Which team do you have less faith in, Houston or Pittsburgh?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I can't remember a year where teams got to the playoffs that I felt worse about than these teams.
Pretty crazy,
right?
In different situations, Pittsburgh jumps out to a great start. Quarterback change, Russell Wilson, the whole nine. They're on top of the division, and it's just constantly falling down.
And you could look at their schedule, Steve, and I said it on SportsCenter when they played Philly and they played Baltimore. I'm like, look, we're all right. Then they get boat raced by Kansas City. They get beaten by Cincinnati, where the final score wasn't as accurate representation, really, I don't think, of how the game went. But, I mean, they enter on a four-game skid against a Baltimore team that's going in the opposite direction. That rivalry through the years, we know it's been heavily one-sided in Mike Tomlin and Pittsburgh's favor, but they've also had a brutal run in the playoffs. And Mike Tomlin said, look, that's all on me. Like, you can hang that playoff record on me. That's not this team. But this team enters with 0-0 mojo. Pickens had a horrible game in his last game, a bunch of drops. Because sports are goofy, they could certainly go out and play well, and Baltimore gets tight. It's hard to see how Pittsburgh turns things around. I asked Troy Aikman, how do they become the team they want to be in a week? And there was a long pause, and Troy said, man, I don't know, Scott. And he's like, they're going to be one and done if they don't figure it out quick. I don't know I don't know what they do. I don't know what the script looks like for them.
Yeah, well, at least they're familiar with their opponent.
That's a great point.
Great point. You have that. But, yeah, it's hard to get fired up for those two teams. The Texans on the other side just were a benefit of a horrible, horrible division. And they come in at 10-7 and hosting that game because of the great system we have and having a division leader host the game. But this is why I can't stand the NFL playoff situation. One team gets a bye. That's dumb. We have an odd number of teams in the playoffs on each side. That's dumb. We have teams with worse records hosting. That's dumb. And too many teams make the playoffs. So that's how I feel.
In review, NFL playoffs, dumb.
They're dumb.
Would you prefer fewer teams?
How about the great idea of having division games in Week 18? How'd that work out? That was really fun.
Yeah, Kansas City just sort of tapped out. Look, I don't blame them.
The thing I don't understand is people were acting like they were the first team to ever do that.
You're right, and it's gone on forever. But
it's happened.
You want to know why?
Ever?
Yeah, but you want to know why people acted like that?
Because they wanted the Bengals in.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then a lot of people turned it into Kansas City's scared of the Bengals. I said, I think if Kansas City, who would you prefer in the playoffs if you're Kansas City, Cincinnati or Denver? I'd say the rookie quarterback. But then if you think about it more, they saw Denver. in Arrowhead. They won on a blocked field goal. Denver's defense, I'd rather play against Burrow on offense than go up against Denver's defense, be honest with you.
All right.
I understand. Look, no one's waved the Bengal flag more than I.
Yeah.
I'm just giving him an out.
You died
here.
on that hill.
I did. I'm dead.
You're dead.
Dead.
Not here.
Nope. Looking at a ghost. But you're looking at a ghost who may or may not have rolled back the odometer on a 84 Monza. No, I think it was like an 80 Monza.
I was going to say.
80.
Because you were driving that thing in
high school, baby. What's up, ladies? Got my tassel off my thing, hanging on the thing. That's how
did you have a T-shirt or a tank top or a mesh jersey that said Ocean City 83? Like, they would make them for every year.
Come on.
Tell me you had them.
I'm sure I did.
Tank top. You're a tank top guy.
No, my arms weren't big enough for tank tops. I don't know, but I definitely had some OP corduroy shorts that were snug on the old package.
Yeah. That they didn't have good ventilation systems on those
Hey,
shorts.
you know what let's do in the summer? Let's throw on some corduroy shorts. The fuck were we doing? I mean, we didn't know any better. I don't know. How'd we get from the Texans, the Bengals, me and OP shorts. Is there any reasonable concern to have about Philly because you haven't seen Hurts in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. When you talk about Green Bay, I'll tell you before we get to that game.
Yeah.
I love Denver plus the points. Love them.
I agree with that.
I don't. I like this Buffalo thing. It's setting up just like it does all the time, and that's absolute heartbreak when they get to the playoffs. And they've taken care of business. They've beaten teams that no one else has. They've had a great season, and when all the questions were, who's Josh going to throw it to? What's that defense going to look like? They have pieced it together, and they're as dangerous as anybody. But now all the pressure's on you. Giving more than a touchdown to a Denver team that doesn't even know what the playoffs are with Sean Payton, who's an experienced guy. I love Denver in this situation, plus the points.
I agree. The Denver plus is appealing. Allen was unbelievable in those back-to-back games inside in LA and Detroit. Game at home against New England. I mean, they've had games, and most teams, like every team's had moments. Detroit probably the fewest. But there have been games where they've had lulls and quarters where they just kind of let people hang around. The pressure's entirely on Buffalo. And this is a Denver team. It's a different team, different quarterback, but Peyton and a lot of those dudes went up there last year on a Monday night in a game that they weren't expected to win and managed to get a victory out of there. That's the dog. If there's a dog that goes on the road and pulls off a shocker, that would be the one. That would be the one.
Yeah. I'm with you. Love them.
And then the thing I'm alluding to with Philly is just Hurts hits his head hard on the ground in Washington, does not come back, and then doesn't come back the rest of the way. I don't know. It's just I don't hear anything. I don't know anything. He could come out. He could look fine, and the Eagles could be fine as well. But this is a Packer team that you and I were both kind of like, hey, man, I could be a Super Bowl team. Then they don't look good at all at home against a Bears team. They lose Watson to an injury.
They're not going to have Jair.
Nope. They kept thinking that they were going to get pieces back. That didn't happen. And I don't love the term recency bias. It's just hard not to allow the last thing you see to impact what you think. And I don't know, Green Bay. I think Green Bay is a dangerous team. I'm going to divorce myself from that Chicago game, and say that Green Bay feels dangerous to me. Look, we always see road teams go in and battle, and I expect Green Bay to do that. I don't feel like this is some blowout game.
Yeah, I mean, it's another deal, too, when you're talking about pressure. It's all on Philly. They're at home. They've overcome. They got the quarterback back. You know their head coach is feeling it. And I'm really interested to see how Green Bay comes out. Last year, I didn't give them a prayer against the Niners, and they should have won that game. And Love was spectacular. So everything gets magnified in the playoffs. Your possessions are even tighter because you don't know how many you're going to get. And turnovers are immense, and you have to avoid them. And that's what I look at with Love and how good that secondary's been for Philadelphia. The place will be juiced. You know that. So it's on Green Bay to bring the fight. You know Philly will do that with their offensive line and Saquon. So it's on in Green Bay for me in this game. I look at them walking into a tough spot.
Think Washington competes?
All right. So here we go.
All right.
I had Cap, our guy, look it up. Because I was dying to know Sunday night when I was going through their resume, and I saw one playoff team win. That's the Commanders. They've beaten one team that's in the playoffs, and that's with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. They beat the Eagles 36-33 in that crazy game. All right, so it's not super uncommon, Cap says. Before the Commanders won 12 games and only won against a playoff team, these are the teams that won 12 and also beat one playoff team. 2016 Raiders, 2011 Patriots, 2004 Chargers. So I thought it was more uncommon, but it has happened, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Does that matter to you? That
no,
they haven't beat. No, okay.
I watched the Buccaneers lose to the Cowboys, and I watched the Buccaneers trail the worst team in the NFL for the last month and the Saints for much of that game. Like, let's not act like the Buccaneers are the 2007 Patriots here.
Agreed. Commanders, money line.
The thing that I will admit to, or admit's not even the right word. I mean, I acknowledge, maybe I'm saying the same thing. Washington's an underdog here. They should be. This roster is hardly Murderer's Row. They got a whole lot better because of their quarterback. He gets banged up against Dallas. They didn't look great in that game. They end up winning. Mariota leads them on a drive, and they score on the last play of the game, and McLaurin won the last play, essentially last play. So I'm not telling you they should be favored, but I'm saying I'm not frightened because of that stat you just reel off. You play who your schedule asks you to play, and they won a dozen games. Like, after the last 3 decades, I'm not going to apologize for who Washington beat to get into the playoffs here. I'm going to acknowledge that the future looks really bright. You hope to get a guy. They got a guy in Daniels. I think Kingsbury's been excellent all year and putting him in positions to make a difference in games. And you're going to have to outduel a guy that's going to battle his backside off in Baker Mayfield. That's the thing that's scary, that makes the Buccaneers scary, is that few dudes reflect the idea of signing up for 60 like that guy. He's undersized. They had to beat the Saints to get in. Well, actually, it turned out they wouldn't have because Carolina won, but who knows how the result impacted Atlanta in overtime. But Baker ran for like 4 first downs where he's just wasn't sliding. He was just, I kept saying they were like car crashes. And he takes off and he's just getting battered and he's getting up and wants to fight everybody on the field. So he'll make them tough because they are tough. But again, they didn't steamroll into the playoffs. They lost to Dallas, and they trailed New Orleans for much of the game. So I don't know, that nothing would surprise me about that result. Nothing.
Didn't Denver go there in like week 2, and we thought that was a horrible loss?
Yeah, they beat the crap out of them.
Yeah,
that's because I thought Bo Nix was terrible. I was wrong.
Yeah. Speaking of Bo Nix, a lot about Daniels here. And I find it very fascinating when you get to this level of the season, and that's rookie quarterbacks in their first playoff games. You've seen guys play well. You've seen guys get absolutely swallowed by the situation. You're most of the time going to be an underdog, and you're probably going on the road. And these two guys are both doing that. I go back to the year with Andrew Luck going to Baltimore, swallowed by Ray Lewis in that defense. RG3 wasn't 100%. Seattle came to Washington, and that's the last playoff game they played in? Is that right?
That seems about right.
Yeah, right? No. They played 2020. Heineke. They lost to
That
Brady.
was make-believe.
Fake.
Tampa
Fake.
came to here and won.
Yeah. Washington won the division as the Washington football team, 7-9. That deal.
Shout out to Steve Spurrier. Not very good.
So yeah, I'm locked into those two games immensely because of the idea of a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs for the first time. I just love watching that. We've talked about weeks where the Falcons and Daniels played in primetime. I love seeing new faces in these primetime windows, and we get that with Tampa and Washington coming to town. Washington will be fearless. They've played that way all year. The question I have is, can Jaden pull off all his tricks if they go down early in this game? Will his demeanor change? Will his energy level change? Will his decision-making change? Will he press? Will he not? Will he be comfortable? We've seen him be comfortable for his whole rookie season, and that's what I want to see in this game with what's at stake. Because when you look at the NFC, Scott, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. These teams that are playing, and we understand there's one team sitting at home with a bye, but the capability of all these teams in the NFC, you win one and you could get this thing rolling, man. Because, you look at Minnesota having to go on the road. You look at LA with their experience. You look at Tampa, who's not afraid of anyone. Green Bay, we just talked about them on how they're a different dynamic with difference makers and youth. And then Philly, obviously, is the highest seed playing this week. I think it's open for grabs. And these teams playing this week, you get this one, man. You got to feel really, really good, but you got to go get it. And that's that. It's win or go home, as they all say. And these teams on this stage will be awesome.
Minnesota had such a great year, and you have all the chips on the table game against Detroit, and you get inside the 10-yard line. I think they had 12 snaps, 12 goal-to-go snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't score a touchdown. And that turns the Darnold conversation, after he looked so good on the road against Seattle and at home against Green Bay, into, Darnold's seeing ghosts. He reverted to old Darnold. Come on. He played a really good team on their home field, who got one key piece back in Anzalone, who, as predicted, was out there with a bounce house on his arm. And Detroit played better. I just don't believe that Minnesota won all these games this year and suddenly Sam Darnold reverted to Jets Darnold and now they have no chance. I think that's a BS narrative, and I don't buy it. So I expect Minnesota, who did go to L.A. and lose earlier this year, a bunch of rematches. Green Bay lost to Philly. Washington lost to Tampa. Vikings lost to the Rams. Like, they're a bunch of rematch games. Green Bay and Philly played week one. Washington and Tampa played week one. Completely different teams at this point. The Vikings lost to the Rams on a Thursday night in a game where they missed Darnold having his head ripped off in the end zone, which they still would have had to go down the field, yada, yada. But the fact remains they missed it. I guess what I'm saying here, and I'll stop saying it, I think acting like Minnesota died in Detroit is completely overstating what happened.
Totally agree. I'm actually looking at it from the aspect of Sam Darnold played in the biggest game of his career at the pro level last Sunday, and he got a bad game out of his way. Now he plays an even bigger game with playoffs on the line. I think they learned a lot about themselves in that situation. I'm curious to see if KOC would do the same thing in those plays near the goal line.
All the go-for-it situations?
Correct.
I think you're just trying to match the play calling aggression of who you're up against. That's what I assume. You don't want to settle for 3 against a team that has shown that they can score touchdown after touchdown after touchdown.
Yeah,
but you know what 3's better than, Steve? 0.
Correct, and 3's add up. Just addition, people. So I get everybody's favorite is Ben Johnson. As far as play calling and the creativeness and all that, I still go back to my man McVay. You want a guy in a spot, I still would take him. He knows where the versatility in the way he attacks your weaknesses is just relentless. And he's got a guy that could do it in Stafford. To me, it's the Rams defense. That youth they have, Fisk, Byron Young, Verse, those guys, what are they going to do at home? I don't know if you have a home crowd for a Rams playoff game. So it's the Rams defense. They gotta slow Minnesota down. You would expect I expect Minnesota to try and get the ball to Jefferson as much as they can early on, get him going and get Sam going. And, the difference is a game if Minnesota can run the ball. So to me, it's on. McVay will be fine with that offense. To me, it's about the Rams defense.
Sounds like we're aligned here. The road team in purple, I would be hesitant to write their obituary the way it felt like so many people did. Would you like a final accounting, Steve, of Pooptown?
Yeah, I didn't. Do you like Chargers against Texans?
I asked your thoughts about Houston, and the thing I'll say is the way my brain works, I know I'm going to talk myself into Houston
and Pittsburgh.
Tease them.
I know you.
They don't lose. I don't know if
Saturday teaser. Get the weekend
you guys understand
going.
how you add 6. It's just how could it lose? That LA defense against a Houston team that's had a hard time protecting Stroud is just, I don't know.
The other thing,
I just have a hard time seeing it.
The other thing, and we've stated our case on the Broncos, you got to find the blowout. There's always one blowout, and where is it? Point spread says it's going to be the Ravens. I'd be careful there because of the familiarity and the desperation that Pittsburgh has. So, but if you can find a blowout, that's always good. Seeing the ball well, if you can find it.
And just road teams tend to outperform the expectation. I'll remind you of that historically. Past performance, not an indication of future
Careful
results.
betting overs, too. Clock runs a lot in NFL games.
Defense tends to win this time of year. Final accounting of Pooptown, ladies and gentlemen.
How many?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 2 question marks. All right, let's go.
Give me the 7 automatics.
Tennessee. Oh, wait, 8. Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
Pooptown.
Cleveland Browns.
Pooptown.
Vegas Raiders.
Pooptown.
New England.
Pooptown.
Jacksonville.
Pooptown.
The Jets.
Pooptown.
New Orleans.
Pooptown.
Chicago.
Pooptown.
All Pooptown.
Chicago won.
Don't care. They ended a 10-game losing streak. Good for them.
They were good in the second half, too.
That means back in the old days of when you used to be able to buy a team VHS tape of your season narrated by the great John Facenda, the Bears tape would end with slow motion of Cairo Santos sent the Packers home with a giant L. Suck it, Green Bay. I don't think he ever actually said that in the video, but that could be the title of your Bears video. Suck it, Bears. Oh, no, actually Packers. That wouldn't be the title of the VHS. They're in Pooptown. I have a question mark next to this team. Indy. The way it ended, McAfee's giving up his suite. Players are going at him. You're mad at a former guy who's repped your city and your team. You're pissed at him. Look in the mirror, man. Good God. Have some accountability. Question mark next to that. I don't know. And after hearing the star wideout from Miami speak and the conversation where Mike McDaniel's alluding to the fact that you could be a player's coach, but then the problem with being a player's coach is that if you lose the group, and there's from the outside looking in, or maybe from the inside projecting out, you're letting people know that things got a little loose. That's too good a team to have dudes saying, I got to get out of here. And again, I think you could see with McDaniel, he's a quirky, interesting dude, and the hard knocks, you see the way that feels like the kind of spot where when it's good, it's like that relationship that we all know where like when they're good, oh, they're awesome. But when it's not, it just feels toxic and bad and it's chaos. And I'm not putting them in there. I'm just saying the way that Greer-McDaniel presser went, it seems like it's worse on the inside than we had any inkling of. Does that sound like what you heard?
Yeah, and when you watch Hard Knocks last year, you sort of got that vibe that it was a fun thing, and people weren't getting on each other's asses when things weren't great, and there was a positive spin on everything. And now you missed the playoffs. Your quarterback's got an injury again. Your best player supposedly wants out. It's pretty much a sticker of disarray when I look at it from the outside. We're guys, talking about what we see and what we hear.
Hey, what we hear, what you're sharing with us.
Yeah,
I think when you're alluding to there's some stuff we've got to get tightened up here, and you start throwing the words accountability and all. I mean, those are the things that I think you clearly saw and heard out of Indy and Miami at the end. Like, look, Pooptown's just a joke, right? Back to the SVP and Priscilla days, our guy Kenneth Garay said it. It was a funny thing. And teams that aren't, everybody does their tiers and the thises and that's. And these are teams that are bad. Okay. Well, I said the Giants, right? I might not have said the Giants. It goes without saying. Pooptown. Interesting they didn't make a coaching change. A bunch of the other teams did. Hey, Vegas.
For the first time,
go ahead.
I agree with that decision. Yeah, give me Justin Fields in New York and let me see Dable with Justin Fields. That's my wish. 2025 wish.
All right. We agree. We think a lot of Dable. I'll say this for Vegas. It's cool that Tom Brady's part of your coaching search. You don't need a quarterback to be part of your coaching search. You need a quarterback that can play the position. I don't care who. Bill Belichick, Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells. Pick legendary coaches from back in the day that won. Bring the very best version of any of those guys to this team. None of them are winning games in Vegas as constructed. None. Zero. You have no chance. Well, just get the quarterback. If it were that easy, they'd do it. But they haven't won a playoff game in 23 years. Now you're in Vegas, cool. Vegas exists to have people come from out of town for a week to have a weekend and leave. Like, is that what you guys are? That's what your field is? Like a place for visiting fan bases to come in, get a dub, have a steak, see a show, roll some dice? What are we doing? They made a coaching change the day after Antonio Pierce. Like, they just come on. If you're going to do it, do it. Shouldn't do a guy like that. At least catch your guys playing hard. Treat him like that. That's bullshit, in my opinion. But of the teams that are in the town, not surprising, a bunch of changing coaches. We'll see who can turn things around. Dolphins don't make a coaching change, nor does Indy. But it's pretty clear that those two situations have got to get turned around quick and in a hurry, or they're going to make a change.
Yep.
Giants as well. And by the way, we can be fans of a guy, but at some point you get the runway you get. And then if you can't get the plane off the ground, then it's time for somebody else to slide into the cockpit and give it a chance to take you someplace else. I have non-football related topics I would like to get to.
Yes.
The SEC in basketball is as advertised. Tennessee was the last unbeaten in the land. They went down to Gainesville last night and played a Gator team who lost in Rupp over the weekend in a 106-100 regulation basketball game. That was not an overtime scenario. And when Florida lost that, you go, oh, okay, that's what they got. They welcomed the number one unbeaten team to town. They were laying 3. That's the old, you're telling us all we need to know. Lay them and laugh. The Gators won by 30. 30. Meanwhile, that Kentucky team that beat Florida and gave them their first loss went on the road and went down to Athens, and they got beat by double digits as well. And those two little snapshots are a picture of what the SEC is going to be in conference play this year. They have 6 of the top 10 teams in the ranking. Ranking couldn't mean less anymore. because what matters way more are the metrics and what the committee uses. We understand that. But just from a bookkeeping standpoint, Steve, there hadn't been 60% of the top 10 for one conference since the 40s. And, yeah, we've got a zillion teams and conferences, so you can discount it that way. Just everyone gets what it is. The depth of that league is outrageous. Feels like you could turn on a game involving damn near any two teams, and at least one of them, and a lot of times two, loaded with pros. They play with pace. I don't know how you're going to sort it out. Teams are going to get in that'll be way under 500 in the league, but it won't matter. Lenardi, I think, has 13 teams from the league in the tournament. Now, it's January the 8th or whatever, so it's early to be talking that. But every night I turn on the game from that league, I'm just like, damn, good luck.
Yeah, Lenardi just sent his email, and now, just so people know, this is real. He does it every single day, starting before the new year, and I have looked at it more so than any other college basketball year because of the SEC, and I want to see. So he sends out his 4 1 seeds, his 4 2 seeds, his 4 3 seeds, his 4 4 seeds. So that's the top 16 seeds in the tournament. He has Auburn as a 1 seed, Tennessee as a 1 seed, Mississippi State, Florida, and Alabama as 2 seeds, A&M and Kentucky as 3 seeds. It's insane. And then his last 4 in right now, and this is where you talk about the 13 teams, he has Vanderbilt and Missouri. It's nuts, the depth of that place. And we always talk about you got to win your home games. You really got to now, because you go on the road, you get that road whistle. That's up against you already, and it's tough. But it's makes for spectacular games, television. I think the game has benefited a lot from getting guys back at places. You see a lot more points scored in games. You mentioned the Kentucky-Florida game. That was incredible to see the ball go in the basket like that, and that's what we need in college basketball. It got a little rough, got really physical. Billis made the point about, shucking screens, and they got to call that stuff. They've done a good job of that. So it sets up for a great season. The one thing that sticks out to me is the lack of teams in the ACC and the Big East. The Big East last year I thought was a monster. I didn't think St. John's was a tournament team. They had their arguments, but they don't have as many teams as they did last year, but their top teams are excellent in UConn and Marquette. So how many teams do we get from the Big East? That's a big factor. And then just seeing how many teams are in the Big Ten also, and no Pac-12 is pretty sad. And when you think about teams that have had success from the Pac-12, and it's UCLA and Oregon in the Big Ten, and then Arizona's in the Big 12.
Yeah, what are we doing?
It just is hard to comprehend right now. But there's plenty of talented teams out there, and it's really, really cool to see, and it sets up for a lot more great games that we'll be on. I was texting with our guy Boog Shiambi, and he's starting his Big 12 Big Monday tour, and he's fired up. He was going through the games. It's incredible what we're going to get every Monday.
That conference is loaded too. There's a couple of teams
loaded.
Traditionally play at a higher level. Kansas State seems down. They don't seem down. They are down. They're 7-7, and they spent all that money on Hawkins from Illinois. I don't know what the issues have been there. I haven't seen them a bunch. But I think there's a team in that league that feels like they've got their footing the last couple, and that's Arizona. They went into West Virginia last night, and that's a ranked Mountaineer team, and they gave it to them. That was after they won at Cincinnati, so Arizona seems like maybe they've figured some stuff out. That league is deep, but just to go back to the bookkeeping you gave from the SEC, the tournament committee, you try to protect, this team can't play that team. There's too many SEC teams. Whenever they meet is whenever they meet. Like, they're just not going to be able to seed a bracket that doesn't have those teams playing each other early. There's just too many of them. But we get to that time of the year, snow outside, playoff football, get into the conference play. But now we have a new thing that you can watch, Steve.
What do you got?
TGL last night made its debut. I know you were out. You guys are getting together. You're doing your game day, and you have out to dinner. I realized that I didn't have a chance to catch what was going on. I'll just say this: I'm just here hosting. It was. I thought fun to watch, moved quickly, and got a lot of things right. That was the overall feedback from the internet, which is amazing because, as we know, they hate everything. But the guys from No Laying Up, those guys, I think, do a great job. They have an authentic voice in the space. They care about the sport. They care a lot about the televised product. They just want to see things moving along. They were very supportive. There's always going to be critiques, and that's fine. No one that's part of it, and I'm a tiny, 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 tiny part of it, but the people of men and women on the ground there have put in an immense amount of work to try to get this thing off the ground. Now, your maiden voyage isn't where you necessarily are a week, a month, a year from now. I'm sure they'll figure out tweaks and ways to change things that they like, or don't like, I should say. But it's the winter. You get some stars in an arena that's you've never seen anything like the technology. Tiger and Rory are going to be out there in a couple of weeks. Tiger's going to be out there next week. Colin Morikawa's LA-led team will be that'll be the competition. You saw our guy Ludwig Oberg last night, who I said, is it possible to be this young, this tall, this handsome, this talented? It would seem the answer is, yeah, he's all those things. And he went out there and absolutely dominated, was just fantastic. And this is a guy that a couple years ago was in college, running around in Lubbock. Trying to picture that. I'm guessing he had a fun time in school, would be what I guess. I think it was probably fun in Lubbock. But he is so talented. He, Lowry, and Wyndham Clark beat the team of Xander, Pretty Ricky, and Matt Fitzpatrick. But hopefully people enjoyed it. If you didn't, that's fine. There's other things on. But I think if you enjoy even casually the game of golf, it's a fun, quick watch. And I'm just interested to see where things go. So next week, 7 bells, Steve, on a Tuesday. That's your homework to watch the Tiger led Jupiter team against the LA-based Colin Morikawa squad. That's your homework next week.
Awesome. Anything will be better than the match broadcasts. Those, I think, are the worst television there are. And listen, I know people that work on those things, and it's hard to make it entertaining. And that's what I think you guys have with the TGL. Be fun. Can we bet on it?
I'm sure you can.
Let's get that going. So, I'm fired up to watch it.
The problem and the challenge that televised golf faces, and I said this with my friend Gary Williams from, not the basketball coach Gary Williams, the Golf Channel Gary Williams, who launched a new show this week I was on. He's really, really good at what he does, and so it's great to see him doing that. The point I made with him is that when it comes to these televised golf events, it's going to be awesome. The players are mic'd up. Cool. Not every golfer's Lee Trevino. They're not providing running, funny commentary. They're competing. And then it's not their job to be the announcer and to broadcast things. You have a chance. Matt Berry is on the mic. Marty Smith's on the ground. You have a chance to interact, get in the player's ear, ask about a certain situation, the strategy of a certain situation. And you are able to, as you're taking all the mics in a truck, take the fun moments, run them back, right? This is something that just happened. And I think, again, the group that's involved are some heavy hitters in our spot. They're gonna do high level production, and I think they'll figure out a way to let the players augment the commentary. But it's the first one. First time you bake a cake, is it perfect? No, but if it's tasty and people like it, like, ooh, make another cake. Well, they're gonna. And then we'll keep going from there. But again, I say we. I'm just the bozo welcoming you on the air. Fun to be involved from afar. Again, a salute to the men and women who have put in stunning and staggering amount of work on the ground down there to get things up and running and trying something new. And so it was cool, as I said, to see those folks actually see. I was talking earlier about getting the plane off the ground, like to see the thing take flight. And now you got to get it to soar, and I imagine they will. What do you got the rest of the day? Going to go out and do some body surfing?
No.
Okay.
Get some work done. Got some more tape to watch.
What time's game day start Thursday?
Kickoff 7:30. We're on the air at 6.
All right.
We'll be on SportsCenter and all the shows leading up to that.
And then trying to get to the Cotton Bowl on the backside for a Friday.
Yeah, we're up in the air. There's contingency plan if we can't fly out after the game to fly out first thing Friday morning, but that's all dependent. The issue with the weather is it going to be freezing or is it going to be rain, ice, or snow in Dallas? That's the issue, and they haven't been the best at handling those things, nor should they be, because it's not a common deal. But that's the situation we faced. And going back to the Aaron Rodgers Steelers Super Bowl, going back to the Oregon-Ohio State National Championship,
remember what
we
they
have been
did,
there
Steve?
for some doozies. What?
They just dumped sand on the street.
Oh, it was bad. Remember how cold it was?
Yeah, and they just put sand like this. Do you understand? This isn't going to help. Doesn't do it. It just makes a slippery thing more slippery.
Yeah.
That was a calamity. That was the one where me and Russillo were in the stairwell for the first show, right?
Yeah.
We were pretty
you
happy.
guys like that. You guys like that setup.
I mean, you're talking about two of the bigger grudge holders on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm never going to do?
That's like
you know what I'm never going to
years ago, and it's still brought up.
You know what I'm never going to let go of? The fact that they made us do our show in a fucking stairwell. Okay? I'd like to say that history looks back on that, and I'd like to say that the two guys that were doing that show, maybe you underestimated what you had. Huh? You know, you got a pretty popular podcast and Anyway, but it's fine. You just we enjoyed being down there in the stairwell.
Yeah.
And then
I just wanted to
being in the smokehouse in the what was that? What's it called? Sunshine Square or something?
Sundance.
Whatever.
I think.
ECU, no quarter.
So, I like to have fun a lot of times. And yesterday I made the decision to wear this hat through Reagan Airport.
Ooh.
And the looks and words I had at me.
For those listening, because this isn't a visual thing for everyone, Steve just held up a creamsicle
Beautiful
Buccaneer hat with Bruce the Buccaneer. Good. You should get some eyeballs. People had some things to say, huh?
Yeah, the guy at the security was like, "Man, go on and get the hell out of here with that shit."
Tell him you can get you can get these hands.
I said, "I'm having fun." He's like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You got other hats. You can wear other hats. So then I still laugh every time I fly out of Reagan because I get it. It's a staple. It's a landmark. The main one in D.C., Ben's Chili Bowl. But the idea that you can eat Ben's chili before getting on a flight is a dangerous move that I have never made, but walking by it every time I fly out of there, plenty of people are deciding to make that move. And the bartender saw me walking by, and he's like, "Yeah, you keep walking with that hat on. Go back down to Florida." And I just gave him a wave. So it's good to see the people fired up in the district. They're back. They're ready. And like I say all the time, you get this stage, you get this opportunity. I hope your team plays well.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And again, the 2020 happened, but it,
not real.
Little more optimism with that this is a sustainable thing, that this is just the beginning of something. But you keep that Buccaneer hat right there, pal. We'll see you all for game day tomorrow. SportsCenter to follow on the Thursday and Friday with both of the college football semifinal games. We're coming back here with a Saturday recap of what we saw. So that'll be obviously the NFL playoff games will not have been played just quite yet, but we will be back with a Saturday pod with reaction to what is going to be the national championship game, what made the difference. Stanford Steve has always given you the ins and the outs of what he saw on the ground and what stood out to him. So enjoy these next couple of days. We'll be back with a quick turnaround for a Saturday recap of the college football semis. Enjoy the Orange and Cotton Bowl, and we'll see you soon.